All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another episode of the Movie Mates podcast. I'm joined once again by my co-host here, Connor Newton. And Connor, this week we have an interesting movie to talk about, and it's a movie that you chose, right? I believe it's called Drive. Was the title of the movie, and this was an interesting movie. And I want to start off just by asking you, like, why you decided to choose this movie.
Uh, well, this might be a spoiler for the episode, but
Oh,
this is like one of my favorite movies to watch in general. Like it's probably like top 20 favorite movies for me.
wow.
Um, and also it's like pretty unheard of, so I was like Ryan hasn't seen it, I'm
Yeah.
sure. So let's watch it.
He was correct about that. But yeah, so I had never seen it before. I had never heard of it before. I know I've mentioned to Connor off the air that I haven't really seen a lot of Ryan Gosling movies, and this is a movie that he stars in, and so I don't know if that played any role in it at all. But
Really well, if I just want to butt in, like I think
yeah,
that his acting is like one of the best parts of the film. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's what I felt coming out of this movie, you know?
I think he did a good job. I think that something like so the way he acted at times just makes me as a viewer, and I'm sure this has to be intentional, just made you feel like uncomfortable. I don't know.
Yeah.
It
Well,
was just
we can talk
strange, and
about his
yeah,
character.
and we get into that. And just for the record, I'm gonna kind of refer to him as just kind of Ryan Gosling, because they don't really ever say his name. They just call him Driver, right? I believe, or the
Yeah,
Driver, pretty much the
yeah.
whole movie, if they even refer to him at all. Like it's just. I, I can't remember off the top of my head, Connor, but I think this is the second movie we've done on this podcast where they don't refer to the character, the main character, as by name. I forget
Oh,
what
what was the other one?
I don't know. Maybe we haven't actually done a podcast with a movie like that, but I thought we had. I don't.
Maybe that's just from us talking about Tenet that you're thinking about that.
Then that's actually, you're totally right. That's probably what it is. Let me just put it out there. One of the best films you'll ever see. Great, fantastic film. But regardless, we can get into Drive here. Yeah. So they don't ever mention his first name, which, like, I don't mind. Like, sure, it is what it is. I don't, Connor. I don't know if you. And this is kind of a tangent. I don't know if there's a reason for that. Like, is there a reason that a film's gonna not mention the first name, or like give
Well,
like
I think in
the
this case, like
actual name?
the reason that they didn't mention his first name is because uh like they wanted that element of mystery to like be a big part of his character, right? Like um
Okay.
the you kind of get to know him in the beginning of the film, right? And he seems like relatable enough, but he does stuff in the later half of the film that is like it makes you think like, oh, there's a ton of stuff I don't know about this character. Like he must have some sort of past or something like that, you know. And I think it's like it's another way they don't give us his name because they're trying to give make him seem more kind of like other from us, and like
I understand.
they try and like make you associate with him at the beginning, and then at the end it's like, oh man, like what is going on with this guy? Like
Makes
I
you
wish I
realize you
knew
didn't really.
more.
Makes you realize you don't
Yeah,
really know him at all, or like you don't really
yeah,
relate to him much at all.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No, I understand. It's sort of an allure of mystery, right? That kind
Hmm.
of follows him throughout the
Yeah,
movie, and gets stronger as the movie goes on. Like I'll definitely
yeah.
agree. But Connor, we can kind of start off like, and I just I want to start off by talking about just the opening scene. I know we almost always do that, but I this for this movie, I think it's a little different because I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of people think this is one of the best scenes in the movie. This first opening sequence, I would say, I would call it, right? I don't know if you think it is, but I
You
think that
mean
a lot
when?
of people think that this whole, bank robbery that occurs,
Yeah,
or maybe not, it was a bank, right? But whatever, robbery
I'm
that
not exactly
occurs.
sure, but anyways, he
We'll
was a
call it,
driver, a getaway
yeah, and he
driver.
he is the getaway driver for a robbery that happens, and it was really cool. It was a really fun scene to watch. It wasn't super quick. It wasn't like he just got away like that, and so they drew it out a little bit, but it was cool because you had to see how many different kind of tricks he had up his sleeve, right? I mean, one time
Yeah.
he quickly parked behind another car on the side of the road, and the cop didn't see him. I think he had a police radio somehow, or he had patched into their radio frequency, and he was able to listen to the cops. So that was obviously helpful. He parked underneath like a highway, an overhead highway, and he got away from the cops there. He and then he went to I think it was like a parking lot for an LA sports game. He went to the parking lot at the end and kind of just integrated with the crowd and just got away like that.
Yeah.
So it was just cool to see a bunch of different tricks he had up his sleeve. I thought it was pretty fun. I thought it was a good opening scene, and I think it gets you pretty interested to start off.
Yeah, I think that I like the opening a lot too.
Yeah.
I think that like even though it's kind of like it's fantastical in its own way, like, oh, he did this so smooth, like that's like unbelievable that he was able to like pull it off perfectly, you know what I mean? It somehow felt more real and more genuine than like other movies where it's like a big action scene, right? Because they're like that would never happen in real life, but this was like slow and calm and felt like, you know, an actual chase might be like, you know what I mean? I don't know if you felt like that, but I thought it was cool.
Well, yeah, I was just going to jump in and say, I think that you said calm, and that's the fantastic word to use there, because when I was watching it, I'm like, man, like, he's so calm. Like, he's sitting there, he has his watch on his steering wheel at 3:00, and he's just, he's just looking at the watch, looking at the door, just calm. He's not, super animated, he's not loud, he's not even talking, right? He's just sitting there ready to go. Like, he knows what to do, and he's just like, I don't know. It was something to marvel at least, I think, for me as a viewer, and I think probably for a lot of people, like, wow, this guy, he's just cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah, and I think that establishes right up front that there's maybe more to this guy than meets the eye, more than maybe we ever find out, but that this guy, he's obviously been through some stuff and he knows how to handle like serious situations,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, without a doubt. So I thought that was really cool. Just that whole scene. Yeah, it was pretty well done. Just, the calmness that he displayed. I thought that last guy in the robbery wasn't going to get to the car on time, but he he managed to get there at the last second. So that was good.
Yeah.
But
when I was watching that the first time, because this is the second time I've seen this movie, I was like, oh, this is like going to come back again. Like later in the movie, we're going to have like a similar scene and the guy's not going to make it or something like that,
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking. I mean, that never happened, but it's kind of cool that I thought it was going to happen and it didn't, Well, that's not the same though. It wasn't like they ran out of time. It was like he ran out of time.
I know. You're right. But and what happens after this, Connor? I guess he moves to a new apartment. It seemed like he moved to a new apartment, a new complex.
Yeah, I think.
I guess after successfully getting the robbery off.
Yeah, well, he has like multiple different jobs, right?
Yes, he does.
Like during the day, he works as like a mechanic in a shop. Yep. And then the shop owner also like hooks him up with like a stunt driver gigs for films and stuff. So he has like
the robberies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the two of them have like a bunch of different jobs that they do together, and it doesn't seem like they're super close buddies. It just seems like, but they're friendly, but they're just more like business partners who are like totally different from each other, and they're just like, they just do business together, I guess, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I want to point out that I believe his name's Bryan Cranston from Breaking Bad, and I know a lot of people really love him and love that TV show. And he did a pretty good job, I thought. I don't know. I think he did a pretty good job with the role he had.
I mean, his character was
kind of a facilitator of sorts, just for the plot.
His character was a little bit of like a slime ball, but. Like one of those characters who's like a little weasel, but also he wasn't super like tropey either. Like he didn't feel like, oh, not this character again,
Yeah, no, definitely. I think he was it was a slimy little guy, but I think he was a nice enough guy. I don't think.
Yeah, he was nice, but he was just trying to like find ways to like make money, basically.
Yeah, and sorry, you want to say one more thing? Or?
Oh, I was just gonna say like a lot of people in this movie, like a lot of them are just about the money, basically.
Well, yeah, almost everybody is in this movie, with the exception of, I think, maybe one character. But I wanted to point out one more thing, that it was just funny the way they cut it, because, they cut abruptly. I think after he went to his apartment initially, they cut to him, with like shades on, and he had like a cop badge and everything. I was like, wait, no way.
Yeah.
I was like, is he actually a cop? I was like, he robs at night and he's a cop, no way. And it was like, no, he was just a stuntman. But I thought that was so funny. I was like, wow.
That's exactly what I thought when I was first watching the film. And I was like, this is so like, I don't know if it's genius or just like mean of the filmmakers to like make you think that. They're like, they just show you like, and the way they show you things is like you kind of have to put it together. Like they didn't explicitly say like he's a stunt driver.
Yes.
You just like saw him like putting on the prosthetics and like doing
And I
the
like
stunt.
that.
And yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
Because I know you've mentioned it before on like past movies that we watch. I know the Maze Runner is the one that stands out to me, but like I know you don't always like when they kind of just like they spoon feed you the questions, you know, as a viewer. Like, oh, well, why is this like this? And like, oh,
Yeah.
this is why. Like, yeah. So yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
I know it's kind of a little bit of a different thing, but I think that that's a good thing that they don't kind of like spoon feed you
Yeah,
like
and
the stuff.
mhm. And I think it made the beginning of the movie interesting because like the whole first half of this movie is basically him getting to know his neighbors. Like half of it is him getting to know the his neighbors, the woman and her child that lives next door to him,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other half of that like first part of the movie is about um, Bryan Cranston's character like working with a mob boss to try and get some sort of like racing gig going where Ryan Gosling is the driver. I don't know. I feel like the first half of this movie is a little bit slow sometimes, but what do you think about it?
Okay,
You know?
the first half of this movie was good. It was slow. Look, I get it. I don't mind slow movies. I wasn't. For me, there's a difference between slow and like boring. Like I know that it's like not super easy to maybe make a distinction for that, but for me, I wasn't necessarily like looking away from the screen too often. You know, I wasn't like, oh man, like checking my phone. You know, I was pretty. I feel like I was still relatively engaged.
Were you invested in like what was going on between him and like the mom and the son and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was pretty well done. I do want to say, look, and you're going to point to Gosling's acting, and it was intentional without a doubt. But when we're watching him have scenes with Irene, was her name, I'm pretty sure, especially Irene, but also with the child, her son, but really Irene. It was so weird how little he talked, and I wrote it down. And the first time I noticed it was when he was at the grocery store, and I think he drove her home because I think her car had broken down or something, and he just doesn't talk. And it was, I wrote
Dude,
it down. I'm like, he speaks so little, it's uncomfortable. It
that's
really
one of my favorite
is.
things about the character though. Like that's just like and he does that with everyone. Like remember when they were at the racetrack and he
Mm,
was meeting like Mr. Rose, I forget, like Bernie,
yes,
the mob
Bernie. Yeah,
guy, right?
yeah.
And he was like about to shake his hand and then Ryan Gosling's character just stands there like taking his gloves off for like 10 seconds without saying anything. And then he's like, my hands are dirty, you know? I was
Yeah.
like, dude, I don't know. I like that he didn't talk that much because I felt like it was like very fitting for his like character. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's
I
not
really
that
liked it.
it's not that necessarily, it's not that I didn't like it. It's just it made me uncomfortable, right? And I'm sure like it was a little unsettling. I don't know. Like maybe it was just me,
Yeah.
right? But I don't know. I just like there were moments where I'm like, all right, he's supposed to speak here. Like, all right, come on. Like he's supposed to respond. Like and he just doesn't
Yeah.
sometimes, or
Yeah.
it's very like terse, like short response. Like
Yeah.
it was just it kind of it threw me
It seemed
off.
like his character was almost like more comfortable not speaking. Like he would rather
Oh,
not
without a
speak,
doubt.
you know?
Yes, without a doubt. And you know, I don't know about you, but you know, sometimes, or at least a lot of times, when someone doesn't speak, it seems like you know he didn't want to display his emotions very much. You know, like he seemed to want to keep it kind of
Mm,
he wanted to keep that calm composure that he had when he was driving,
yeah.
like throughout every aspect of his life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. See, this character has layers. I'm telling you, Ryan. He's the best part of this movie. I'm telling you.
He very well might be. He very well might be. But you know, we keep seeing scenes with him and Irene, right? He spends a lot of time with her and her kid. And I don't know. This is kind of the first half of the movie that Connor mentioned. And they end up going on a date, I think. I don't know if it was ever formally a date. I think it might have been. I think
It
they,
was like a drive, right?
yeah, I think so. They were just weren't they just driving? And then they went, did they go to dinner or did they just drive?
I don't think they did. I think they just held hands, right? They just,
While he was driving? Yeah, maybe.
yeah.
Maybe. But during that, doesn't she say that her husband's getting out of jail in like a week?
Oh yeah, she does. Yeah,
So
yeah.
it kind of ruined it. It was like, okay, well, you could.
Well, it's like it's weird
uh,
because I think that she does love her husband, right? But she just finds I think she's like attracted to him because he's so mysterious. But it's not like they ever like explicitly like cheat or anything, you know? I don't know. It was weird. It was a different dynamic that I hadn't seen before, you know? I don't know.
yeah, it was very weird. I think it was a situation where like she loved her husband a bit, but I think she knew that her husband was kind of like bad news, just not like in the best of circles, is what it seemed to me. Like maybe it had to do with
Yeah.
him being in jail, but like you know, when seeing him at least out of jail, like he seemed like he wasn't like, you know, in the know with the best quality of people, right? He was kind of, you know, into some shady stuff
Maybe,
and
but
met
I
some
mean,
shady
like
people.
it's not like
That's what I saw.
I don't feel like he could have. I don't feel like he could have helped that. You know, at that point, right? Like
Oh
he
no,
was
I don't
already
think
in
no, I don't think
jail.
so either. I don't think she was expecting him to be able to help that. I'm just saying that I think that you know, I think she was probably aware of that,
Yeah,
at least to some degree. You know, I
yeah.
don't know. And
I don't
yeah,
know, but that drives the plot forward, right? That he's released out of
yes,
prison.
it very much so does. And I think Connor, after this, right, he ends up coming home, right? And
Hmm.
it was kind of a weird situation because they have his coming
Dude,
home. They have the party when he comes home. Gosling's
yeah,
not there. He's just kind of all by himself, and he's kind of like cast out, kind of right from away from them. And it makes sense, right? Like it's just kind of uncomfortable having him there when the
yeah.
husband comes back. And he ends up having an interaction with the husband. And I don't really remember his name off the top of my head. I know it was played by Oscar
His
Isaac.
his
But there's
name is
no.
Standard.
Oh yeah,
Um,
his name was
but
Standard. Yeah.
yeah, that's funny. But I really like this scene. Probably one of my favorite scenes of the movie when
No,
these two
it
like
was really well done.
interact for the first time.
I agree.
Yeah,
I don't know if you want to.
because
Yeah.
well, I don't know. You could like feel the tension between the two of them, but it wasn't like movie drama like you would normally see, where like obviously these two guys are gonna be like, you know, fighting for the girl or whatever. It was like it felt like they respected each other almost. It was weird. I don't know. I just really liked how there was like a level of conflict, but it wasn't like these guys hated each other's guts or anything like that, you know? I don't know.
I
I
don't
just
think
like the
they. Oh, I don't.
subtlety.
I don't think they hated each other, and it was very subtle. And the reason the subtlety's good is because that's how a real life interaction would go. I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
because look, if you're in that situation, typically if someone's angry like that, which Oscar Standard clearly was, and it makes sense that he was angry because it's like, you know, this guy's all of a sudden in his wife's life when he was away in jail, and you know he's just very. It's very like underhanded, you know, kind of like anger or frustration, kind of. You know, it was just
Hmm.
like the little things that he said in the whole interaction, and it was funny because Gosling's calm demeanor was just there. You know, he was just as calm as always. It was just kind of weird, but I really liked the scene. I definitely agree. It was tense, but in like a real sort of way. It wasn't like over dramatized, like, you know,
Hmm.
the scene itself.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I don't really remember exactly what happens after that.
Mm,
You?
I think after that, what ends up happening, uh, hmm, let's see. Oh,
But the next thing that
Gosling was asked to do another robbery and drive for another one, and he shut the guy down at the diner. He got very angry.
oh
You know?
yeah, okay.
He was like
That was a pretty
really
good scene
angry.
too. That was a
Mhm.
pretty good scene too.
Yeah, I don't know what you thought of that.
I like I don't know, you don't really get to see much emotion from the driver outside of like maybe two times, I would say, in this whole
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I do like when he showed emotion because it's like that build up and then you finally get like a little like release, you know what I mean? Because like we talked about, the beginning half of this movie is very slow,
Yes.
and there are points that it builds to, I think, that are like a lot more heavy handed. And I think this is like, even though this one obviously isn't as extreme as like some like someone dying or whatever, it
Mm.
was like I still thought it was pretty surprising the first time I watched it, and kind of exciting too because you're like, oh, like he's passionate about something, you
Yeah.
know? And
Well,
yeah,
I don't know. This seemed fairly obvious to me, but the reason he was so passionate about not wanting to do it again is because I think he wanted to go legit, and I think that he wanted to uh, stop doing those, you know, robberies because he had a big race coming up, right? He was signed by the mob boss. Signed. He was contracted with the mob boss to go do an actual race,
yeah.
right?
But
And I
I don't
think
know that he cared. I don't know that he cared that much about that, right? I think he cared more about Irene, and I think he was more upset about Standard being back, and that's why he snapped so much.
hmm.
Because remember when he's interacting with the mob boss in the garage, and he's like not really saying much, and the mob boss is like, you know, I've got a lot writing on this, like, and he just has no reaction. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I
I
mean,
just feel like
maybe.
he wasn't interested. I don't know.
Maybe I think that You're what you said makes perfect sense. The only reason I thought he wanted to go legit is because I thought he wanted to go legit like maybe for Irene or like for himself and Irene.
Yeah, no,
You know what I'm
that
saying?
definitely makes sense too.
So like
I
it was
just
probably a like you know what I'm saying? Like maybe he didn't care about the driving, but he knew the only way to get out of what he was doing, which was dangerous, you know,
yeah.
and he clearly now had someone to care about was to go like
Mhm.
legit by doing real races, you know.
Yeah.
So I
So
mean,
I
you're
I
right.
mm, the movie at this point I feel like kind of drifts away from the racing aspect, right?
Yes.
Um so I mean, I know we haven't talked about the second half of the movie yet, but what did you think about that? Like, did you want to see more of that racing aspect? Did you feel comfortable with it, like fitting in there, or because to me it feels somewhat like it's more of a plot device for him to get to know the mob boss before the rest of the stuff
Yeah,
happens.
I mean, I definitely do. Look, a mob boss in LA, like, okay, man, like these mob bosses stick on the East Coast, all right. But here's the thing, I thought that it was okay. I wasn't, and we'll get into this more in the second half of the movie. I wasn't the biggest fan of what the direction they went towards in the second half of the movie. I thought it was kind of like personally, I was kind of jarred by it all, and maybe that's the point. I'm sure that was the point. You were supposed to be kind of in a sort of shock or surprise about the turn that this movie took in the second half of the movie. But I kind of I kind of wish it didn't take that kind of a turn. I kind of wished it took more
Hmm,
of like maybe if it were to do something like that, it was a little more like you know just less crazy. Like and I don't want to spoil
interesting.
anything right now. I just wish it kind of went a little bit less crazy in the second half of the movie.
You know, I feel like
Personally,
a lot of people would say that, I think, because it
yeah.
it feels like the second half of the movie has so much violence compared to the first half, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we have like a lot of violence in movies today,
Mm-hmm.
but in this movie it just feels so real for some reason. I don't know if you felt like that.
Well, yeah, and I think the reason it felt so real is because it was slow in the first half without having like unreal like I feel like the interactions in the first half were pretty real interactions, particularly the interactions with everybody outside of Gosling or outside of the driver. Like he was a
Yeah,
little uncomfortable and very quiet, which was the only kind of weird thing about it. But the interactions felt very real to me, and like the tension felt very real to me, and the emotion felt very real to
yeah,
me. You know, so I think that's to me, I think that's kind of why. And it just took
yeah.
a 90-degree turn in the second half
But
of the
could you
movie.
feel like when we meet the mob bosses originally, when they're talking to Bryan Cranston and stuff like that, did you feel like they were a threat? Like there was some potential for violence at the beginning of the film?
I didn't, not from, what's the main one's name? The one who backs him.
Bernie?
Bernie, not from Bernie,
Yeah.
from his buddy though.
Nino?
From his buddy, I definitely did. Like they poured it on with Nino, uh,
Yeah.
or Gino. Was it Gino or Nino?
Nino.
Nino, yeah. Uh, Nino, it was poured on. It was very like, all right, like this
Yeah.
guy is a mob guy. Like you could just totally tell. And I don't know, it just
Yeah.
seemed like he was a little more
I don't know. I felt like more uncomfortable around Bernie because
really.
he didn't seem as like, because he was so nice, but
Oh,
you could tell that he meant business. You know what I mean? Like that kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
I mean that's a mark of a pretty solid movie at least that we both were kind of both threatened by someone different. I don't know.
Yeah. Um,
Look, even
anyways,
if one more thing before I move on, even if I was threatened by them, which I was, and especially Nino, I just didn't expect it to take the level of violence that it did. I just
no,
like
I,
you know
I
what I
I
mean?
didn't expect that either, but I wasn't put off by it. I liked that the movie tried decided to go that direction. You know, even though I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, I suppose. Look, we can get into the second half of the movie now. I don't know, Connor, where you want
Yeah.
to start off.
Well,
We can kind of start off by
well,
talking about standard,
well.
right?
Yeah. Let's talk about yeah, because remember he gets beat up, and then Ryan
Yes.
Gosling finds him and Benicio,
Yeah,
and he
it
goes
was,
he goes straight to Benicio too, dude. He's like,
dude. It was really funny because like when he found him all beat up, it was almost like Standard was found by like his dad. He's like, "Oh no, I got caught. I got beat
yeah,
up. Don't tell on me." Like it's just kind of funny. I don't know. Um, but
yeah, I
he ended up
guess,
lying to his wife about what happened, about why
yeah,
he got beat up, which like I was kind of surprised that the driver was okay with him just doing that, because he definitely could have
Mm.
told her whenever, and he told
Well,
her
but I
later.
feel like he probably didn't think it was his place, right? Like Standard is, you know,
The husband. Yeah.
uh, the husband of her, and he,
Yep.
even though like he was spending time with them, like he obviously doesn't know them as well as like her husband knows them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Um, and then also, I feel like it's realistic, like even if it's not the most logical choice for a husband to be like, oh, I don't want to tell my wife that like I'm in trouble because then she'll just worry. Let me just figure it out by myself and then
Yep.
like we'll be fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
fair.
know.
Yeah, no, definitely, because he was in trouble with some bad people, because he got protection in jail, right? And so he owed them money
Yeah,
once he got out of prison, and he needed to pay them,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And basically, what happens soon after this is he asks the driver to help him with
Yeah,
a robbery.
yeah.
And, this was interesting to me because I I understand why he did it. I understand why the driver helped him out, right? Because he wanted to
Mm.
get Irene, and her family away from these people, right? Out of trouble, away from these dangerous people. Because I think he
Yeah,
was told that like they were going to go after the family next, I think is what
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
happened.
yeah, yeah. That was the driving force, I
So I think
think.
he was kind of backed into a corner, and he's like, "All right, fine, like fine, I'll help you." Um, So, yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this whole thing. Like I guess they start getting ready for this operation, and they recruit this lady to help them, and this other guy is like acting like he's all like cool and he's like a tough guy. Like this, I think it was a bald guy that kind of initiated the whole operation, but it was just
Yeah.
weird.
Well, I mean, I think those were just supposed to be like the guys that he was involved in that he was supposed to pay back, right? Like I don't think it was really important who they were, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, no,
Um,
it wasn't too important, I suppose.
yeah. I think like the idea of the heist was cool.
Yeah.
Um, and then when they actually went to pull off the heist,
Yeah.
uh, that was interesting. I don't know. What do you have to think about? What do you
Look,
think about that?
look, it was too. You knew something was going to go wrong. All right, and maybe you
Yeah,
didn't think something was going to go wrong at the first. You're like, all right, look, it's pretty easy. They can get away. They have a gun. You knew something's going to go wrong as soon as a car with tinted windows pulled up a few spaces away from the driver, and he knew it too. I mean, he saw them. He knew, and it was just like, all right, like this feels fishy, and from there it kind of went all wrong, right? I think, and
yeah,
after this, they get out. The girl gets out with the money. She sits in the car. They're waiting on the last guy. They're waiting on Standard, and he runs out, and he looks like all's good. He just gets shot by the shop owner, right? And he gets killed
yeah,
right there. And then they got to get away. So they start driving away, and they got a whole chase.
yeah,
And this car that was next to them is chasing after them. And I'll just say, it seems like, the driver kind of just rolled them, right? Uh,
yeah.
he kind of he outplayed them really well.
He
Mm,
did. He did.
but Standard's dead. So it's like, okay, well, why did I just do this whole thing? Now the husband's dead, and
Yeah.
he has a bunch of money. He's in trouble.
Well, I kind of like that. You know, like the objective has now changed, right? Like now you have a whole different set of circumstances that were
Yeah.
unexpected, and he has to try and make the best choice with what he has. But I do want to address. I don't know if you have anything else to say about that scene, but like,
Mm.
what exactly was the plan from like that other car? Like, what were they trying to do? Like, I know it was like a holdup. Like they were trying to get the money from them to give to Nino or something, right?
Yeah.
But like, what was the purpose of like setting up the phony robbery? Like, why didn't they just go in and rob it themselves and then bring it straight to Nino?
I thought they wanted to rob. I thought they wanted someone else to do it because I didn't. Wasn't like the guy that had wasn't the money like from Nino's like actual mob family? Wasn't that what happened?
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't think he directly wanted to be the one that stole the money.
Oh, so they wanted it to seem like someone else stole the money.
And then
Okay.
they got it back from them or something.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think
Gotcha.
because he wasn't in good graces with his family, was my understanding. He was kind of
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, okay,
on the
okay.
outs
Yeah,
of
they
his
explain it
mob family.
later.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll accept it. I'll accept
So
it.
that made sense to me. My thing was is like, look, up to this point, I was on board. I was like, man, all right, Standard's dead. The husband's dead. All right, now it's just the driver and this girl, right?
Yeah.
It was really weird at this point from this point on. I don't know. Gosling, the driver, snaps at this girl. They're in this motel room, and I'll tell you, he just goes kind of nuts on her. Like, this is the most emotion I've seen from this guy in the entire movie, and he is not messing around. He's just like he was like started whacking her, and he's like, tell me what the actual plan was, and she tells him, and it's like, okay, calm demeanor.
Dude,
it was just weird.
You're telling me that wasn't entertaining though to see him?
Oh no, it was definitely entertaining. It was definitely entertaining. You want me to tell you what I thought was where it went along off the rails? About 30 seconds later, when she gets her head blown off out the window.
Dude, what if you didn't see her get her head blown off? Like, what if she just died? Like, would that be different? A different situation?
I didn't even really want her to die there at all.
No, I mean, it's not about whether you want her to die. Like, she's an insignificant character, right?
I don't think it made sense that she died right there.
Why? She had said all she needed to say to him, right?
Well, because but here's the thing. The mob guys were the guys that came and shot her and tried to kill the driver.
Yeah.
I thought that if you're in the mob and you're in LA, you shooting someone's head clean off in the middle of a motel, and just like the whole room's filled with blood, and you're not expecting at all to get at all caught up in any sort of investigation. I was of the understanding with such a real feel in the first half of the movie, especially in terms of the emotions and the interactions, I thought it would take a more realistic approach towards like consequences and repercussions, and I felt like they did not at all in the last 40 minutes.
That's a good point. But I also want to point out that it does bring up a realistic feel in the beginning of the movie. But would you disagree that it also establishes a very stylistic feel? Like the way that they incorporate music and the way that they edit scenes.
The music was very good, by the way.
And it was. And the way they use colors, like it's not like a typical it's not like a typical like scene, like yeah. I felt like it had this, I felt like that matched the style of like it was like a uber realistic style where it was like an over the top realism almost, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? I don't know.
And over the top realism's good. I just for some reason find it very jarring when you have that sort of realism, that level of realism in a non-violent way versus a violent way, right? Like,
yeah,
it was just an abrupt change to me. Not like I could eventually get behind it, and I'm sure some people do. But I don't know. It was just tough for me to see that.
I think
she gets her head blown off, and then the driver just goes ahead and kills both of them, both the people from the mob.
Yeah,
it just shoots them, and the blood's everywhere.
And once again, right? It's not like a typical action scene that lasts 5 minutes, right? It's very quick. I don't know. It's like a minute. And
yeah.
I don't know. I felt like it was believable to me that Nino, acting as he does, he seemed like a very rash guy and didn't really care about like consequences. You know what I mean?
Who, Nino?
Yeah,
definitely not. I don't know how he's made it this long. I'm gonna be honest, if he kills this many people like this. But look, I mean, I think that the actual killing of the people was like looking like it was legit, like it was real. It wasn't drawn out, and it reminds me, thinking about it, and it's a little different, right? It's a different kind of movie, but it reminds me of the realism of like Sicario in the way of like, I don't know, for some reason, just like the quick action sequences, the not like unnecessarily drawn out, dramatized like shooting scenes as well. Like, I don't know, it felt pretty. They felt pretty legit to me. It was just jarring. That's all.
And I would say those dramatic action scenes like have a place, and I enjoy like movies like John Wick or Mission Impossible or whatever. But it's, I don't know, it's kind of cool to have like a different type of movie, and that's why I kind of appreciated it. Not that I enjoy seeing like people's heads exploding, but I think it was like purposefully jarring, right? Like you said before, which might not appeal to everyone, obviously.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think they just wanted to, because I felt like they made you so secure in the beginning of the movie. Like you just felt like so calm with them, with like the family, and then it just kind of all gets interrupted slowly. Like more and more things start to go the wrong way. I don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely, 100%. And you know, from here, Connor, it continues to go off the rails. It just does. I think next, Connor, we get a scene with Gosling or the driver in the club, or in a club,
Actually,
looking for a guy. No, was that not what I thought that was what happened
oh,
after? But
well, what happened was he went to well, first we got the scene in the diner where Bernie and Nino were talking, and Bernie was really upset at Nino for his plan, and he like murders that dude with like the fork and the knife.
that's what I'm
Oh
saying.
no,
Like,
wait, oh wait, that was after. Wait, that was after the club scene. You're right.
it was after, because it was after the
Oh
guy
yeah.
got all bandaged up. But like the thing is like talking about that real quick. Like, do they not think that they're gonna get like the guy's dead right there? And there's no one can ask questions about a guy that just
I
dies.
I mean no, I mean that's Nino's shop though, right? Like like I'm sure he could
No, you
control
could
that
clean it
very
up, but I'm
easily.
saying like, won't they like ask like how did this guy die?
Well, who's gonna ask how this guy died?
The cops.
Dude, how would the cops find out? It's Nino's shop, right? Like,
Well, they won't. They won't find out for like a couple weeks,
yeah.
theoretically. But I mean, I
I
guess it
mean,
doesn't really matter in the
obviously,
end.
like the cops probably know like there's a mob in the area, right? Like,
You're probably right. Yeah, I'm reading too much into it. Um,
uh, but
but
you're right. That the club scene did happen first with the.
yeah, I thought this was good. I thought this was a good scene. I thought this is an interesting scene, only because he goes there, right? And I think the guy's name was like Cook or something. I think was his last name or something, right?
Yeah.
And I think, right, he's asking him like where, wasn't he asking like where like his boss was or like who
Oh,
ordered like
he wanted
what's
to
going
know
on
like
or whose money it was
he
or
wanted him to like call your boss basically or whoever it was.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what I thought was interesting is he wasn't holding anything back, right? He was kind of whacked him around a little bit at first, right?
Yeah.
And what I
Well,
thought was the
I
most
think
interesting.
like we had seen in the scene before, like he wasn't afraid to be violent, right?
No,
The driver, he's not, even though he's the protagonist, I didn't feel like he was that morally like righteous
no.
of a person, you know?
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
thought he was a good guy. Even when he killed those two people in the motel, like I was like, all right, like look, they went at him first. Like, all right, you can defend yourself and kill him. Like you have to. They're gonna kill you. You got to kill that. Like I was okay with that, right? Like that made perfect sense. I was like, all right, this guy. But like later on in some of these scenes, it's like, all right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyways, I interrupted you. What were you saying
Oh, I was
about
just saying, I thought it was really interesting because in this scene in the club, when he's like beating this guy to a pulp or at least whacking him around a little bit and has him on the ground and he asks the questions, all these girls are standing there. They're just they're like,
dude, that's what I was thinking. Their faces are so like blank.
that's what I'm saying. Like
dude.
they're like they hate this guy. I think they hate him. I think they hate him. I
Yeah.
don't think they like him. I think they were like, Leo, like beat this guy up. I don't care. Like I don't think they liked him at all. So I thought that was really interesting. Like that was like that made sense to me because I don't think the owner or the manager of like these clubs like this are the most
Yeah.
moral or nicest people. So
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting, and I kind of like that a little addition that they were just kind of all like they were
Yeah.
really just standing there watching, not caring.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Also in that scene, that's when we first find out that Nino is the one who was responsible for the heist, right? For the fake heist or whatever. And I think that this was probably the biggest hurdle for me, right? Is the coincidence that the guy that he is like helping out, whose family lives next door, right?
Yeah.
Is caught up in a heist with the partner of the guy that he is like gonna do a race with, right? In LA.
Ugh.
With all those people, right? I think that was a big coincidence. But like, if you can get, for me, it didn't really matter that much. But I do think that that's like a small flaw in the movie. Is that like that's a pretty big leap. Like that Standard would get caught up in a heist run by Nino, and those are like two different aspects of the driver's life, you know.
But like, look, the reason I don't read too much into it is like, at the end of the day, a movie has to have some coincidences in order to like get you like to care about, like, because you have to know the character at least, right? That's involved in that sort of thing. At least most of the time. Like, sure, there might be exceptions where you get introduced to like the big bad boss like later, but for the most part, like, they need to have one or two coincidences.
Yeah, and it didn't really bother me watching it. It's only looking back, I'm like, that was a very convenient of them to do that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And Connor, look, this next scene here is perhaps. This was my breaking point, Connor. I'm going to be honest with you.
Is this the elevator scene?
This was the well, yes, it is. And just prior to this scene, he tells Irene the truth and what he was helping Sandra with, and she slaps him. I thought she was gonna like get a little more sad, but okay. Like she slaps him. All right. And they go down the elevator because he wants to walk her out, and this guy is looking for the driver. Is another mob guy. He's looking to kill him. Is in the elevator with them, and he's like, "Oh, wrong floor." Like, okay, like, all right. Anyway, this was weird because he kisses Irene after all this time.
Yeah.
And after he kisses Irene, he moves her to the back of the elevator and absolutely beats this guy to an absolute pulp and he just doesn't stop.
Dude, I think
what?
So
Connor, what?
Dude, that's what I'm saying. Is like I think that this movie is trying to like is trying to emphasize the violence. Like it's trying to say
clearly
like,
was,
listen, yeah, it's like this protagonist is not like this great guy, right? Like he has deep-seated issues, right?
He's crazy.
And I think it's supposed to make you think like I think that's just another level of complexity to his character, right? Like there's so much like could have happened in this character's past. Obviously it didn't, right? The character is contained within the story, right? Nothing actually happened, but like it's up to the audience to think about like what could have created a character like this who like doesn't talk, but it's like super friendly, but then like has this like breaking point, you know? I don't know.
Maybe I'm too much of a maybe I'm too.
I feel like
maybe I have too much of a wishful thinking and this sort of thing. But what I was hoping when he started beating this guy up, I was like, all right, maybe he cares enough for Irene. Maybe he loves her enough that he'll stop. He'll control himself. He'll stop beating. He won't just smash the guy's literal like face in. Like it was insane.
Yeah.
He just kept going. I was like,
really, dude, he turned
really
into
mad.
the Mountain from Game of Thrones.
Seriously, like here's the thing. Like I don't know. Like I just didn't. I thought a lot of what was driving him in this movie was his care for Irene and her child, and I think that's what was utilized for a lot of his the decisions he made, the things he did. But this back half of the movie, and from this point on, it seemed like he cared about like winning this sort of killing battle more than her. And I was disappointed because I wanted to see him rise up above that is what I wanted there.
But after he killed Nino, he wanted to disengage, right? He wanted to be done with it. But then Bernie was like, there's still 3 players left, you, me, and your little girlfriend. So like Bernie like pushed him by basically threatening Irene, right? Like I think he would have like all he wanted was for Nino to die, basically. That was his goal because Nino killed Standard. And what?
But he didn't need to do that.
No, but I think
he could have given him the money and left.
That's what he was trying to do, though. That's what he was trying to do before Nino sent the guy to kill him.
But even after the guy was sent to kill him, just toss him the money and leave. He just couldn't let it go. He couldn't let it go.
Because he knew after he had killed that guy that it was too late, right? Like they're not going to leave him alone at that point, right? He can't just give them money and leave.
You think they could have found him anywhere?
Plus, at that point, plus at that point, he realized that the reason they knew where his apartment was is because Shannon, Bryan Cranston's character, had talked to Bernie and revealed that that's where he lived, basically. And at that point, he realized like he wasn't safe, so he had to kill Nino. You know.
I suppose. Look. There's still another moment in this movie where I'm disappointed, but we'll get to that in a minute. After this, she understandably steps out of the elevator and just kind of leaves to go to work because, man, like...
Well, what else is she going to do?
What are you going to do? Like, say, I understand you crushed his face in. Like, not only did you kill him, but, like...
Well, I don't think that was a good choice by him. I think that was awful to do.
It was not
a good
choice.
But I thought that it was interesting that the protagonist did that.
It was definitely interesting. I will say that.
I thought that it made the movie more interesting, and I thought that it elevated the movie to a higher level.
I don't know if it elevated to a higher level. I think it just like raised the stakes. And to me,
because he's not just like a typical protagonist, right? He's like doing things like he has flaws like a regular person, you know?
Well, I would say that his flaws aren't necessarily that of a regular person.
Okay,
but
I would agree.
I thought having a flaw of being involved in robberies is enough of a flaw. You know, like I don't think.
No, because no, I disagree. Because you have a movie like
Wow.
Baby Driver, right? You have a movie like The Italian Job. You have Ocean's 11, right?
Yes.
All these crime movies where like you totally support the protagonist and nothing they do seems morally questionable to you, even though they're involved in all these robberies and stuff, right?
I didn't think he was supposed to be the morally questionable character. That's all.
Well, I thought that making the protagonist morally questionable felt very real and fit this world very well and gave us like a different experience, like watching the movie.
Now, I will say, like having morally questionable protagonists is fantastic. Like you look at TV, like what stands out to me is you look at almost any Game of Thrones character. You look at Westworld. Those are the two things that stand out to me because I'm big fans of both of those shows. The protagonists, and there are multiple, all are morally questionable. They all are in a way. And I think they pull it off very well. Here, I understand the desire to make him a morally questionable protagonist, and he does become one in the second half of the movie. My point is in the first half of the movie, he's not a morally questionable protagonist, and the switch from not morally questionable to morally questionable is just like one that like it's literally like this. It's like, all right, morally questionable switch activated. Like it's just like
I thought it was gradual enough, like from the point where, well, because I thought like
I thought that elevator scene was like it was just different from everything else.
Yeah, okay, because I agree that the elevator scene was different because in the other scenes it seems like he was driven more by like his desire to like save them, right?
And live, and yeah, of course.
Right. But just because he beat this guy up to a pulp doesn't mean like he was doing it because he loves violence, right? It might have just been because like he couldn't control his anger, right? It's not like he consciously decided like you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna kill this guy and like destroy his body, you know? I don't know.
Well, from that point on, it's like, all right, like he's no longer doing this for Irene, is what you kind of the vibe you get.
I don't know.
To me,
I felt like for what I felt like after this point, he kisses her because he realizes she's gonna watch me kill this guy and she's gonna want nothing to do with me. So my only job is to keep her safe, and like he pretty much like realized that he was probably gonna die too, and he just wanted to take the mob guys out with him as much as he could, right? That was my understanding. Like he realizes at that point that she doesn't want to have anything to do with him.
I understand. I mean that makes sense. I suppose. It's just such an extreme turn so quickly. It's just hard to, kind of wrap your head around. But I mean,
I agree. I agree. I just know that watching it the first time, that was what I liked about it, the extreme difference,
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. And soon after this, Connor, it moves pretty quickly. We don't see any more of Irene. And I think from this point on, Shannon gets killed by Bernie. So he's dead. He was about to leave. Yeah. He almost left, and he died.
Dude, it was Bernie
clean kill. I'm just gonna say it was a clean kill.
As respectful and kind, I guess you might say, as Bernie seems compared to Nino, he was kind of like a savage, dude. He was like,
well, it's different kinds of violence, right? It's the more brutal and kind of savage brute force style of violence of Nino, and the more underhanded, kind of slimy, as you mentioned him as being, or you mentioned, Shannon as being.
Yeah.
But I think this fits Bernie as well.
Yeah.
But more of a slimy, in the shadows kind of lethality, right? I mean, this guy doesn't seem like the most brutal person, but he really is he's pretty brutal. I'm sure he's killed quite a few people. I mean, his old knives, and not just knives, but like, crisp,
I thought he was more ominous than Nino. I never really felt like Nino was a threat to the
Nino seemed like he just was a guy who was easily able to fly off the handle. And that's why I thought he was more dangerous, because he was just more willing to go to like brute violence quick. He was just like, let's just go. You know what I'm saying? Like he sent those guys to go kill Gosling. So like that's why I thought that. It wasn't like necessarily like he was more scary. Yeah. It's like
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's kind of where I was coming from with that. But you definitely make a point. Yeah. Bernie himself is Yeah, he's a little scary. And right, so after he kills him, it keeps going quick. I mean, the driver goes up to Nino's pizza shop here, his pizzeria, and he starts shooting it up and goes on. Or does he not shoot it up? He at least goes to
He
it.
just looks in the window and then he goes back to his car and waits for Nino to leave.
Yeah, you're right. I just remember putting on a mask and it was weird.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna.
I thought he was gonna go in and shoot it up.
Even the second
Wow,
time
funny.
watching it through, I thought he was gonna go shoot it up. I didn't remember that he just went out and
You're
waited.
right. He did though. He waited till Nino got in his car and he.
Yeah. So
spun
hey,
him
that
out.
shows a little bit. That shows that he cares a little bit about like maybe possibly being tracked down by the cops. You know, I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, you can say. Yeah, I suppose. It would take them a while to piece together that Nino was killed by someone intentionally. Because he spun out and fell off the cliff. Oh.
Yeah, they would maybe guess it was like a hit and run, and then
Eventually they would find out like, oh, something hit him off instead of like the car didn't just spin out naturally.
Yeah.
But regardless, that's what happened. He hits him off of like a cliffside kind of, and he's not quite dead yet. Nino is, right, but he does end up killing him.
Yeah.
Right. And Connor, after he kills Nino, I'm like, all right, go talk to Irene. Go leave. You can end this here. You can go live in the middle of nowhere.
Dude, but Irene would still be in danger.
Bernie doesn't have international reach. You can get away.
But what about Irene though?
Get away with Irene. Convince
what if
her
she doesn't
go.
Want to, dude? What if she's like, you're a murderer?
That would have been such a good scene, such an emotional scene. I can't go with you. You're too. I like Oh
no, but,
man, that would have been so
we can't have a scene like that. We can't have a scene like that. She's too emotionally tough. Even when she's upset, like, or even in her scenes, she didn't talk that much either. You know, neither of them talk that much.
But I think it would have been an interesting scene, like her like having to admit, like I can't, like, and then him being like, please, but like in their emotionally like shelled way, like kind of sheltered way.
I guess, yeah, that would have been interesting. Yeah. But I don't know.
Because I thought they did those slow scenes pretty well, so I was looking forward to a scene like that.
They did do those slow scenes well, but I don't know. I kind of. Well, let's talk about what they did instead, okay?
Okay, what they did instead is Bernie and the driver meet. Right? It's just the three of us left, is what Bernie said, as you said earlier. It's just the three of them left: Irene, Bernie, and the driver. And the two of them meet at a restaurant, and you can tell they both want to kill each other. I mean, you can tell that's what they're planning on doing. He's like, all right, the money's in the car. He's like, all right, take me to the money, blah, blah, blah. And
they don't really waste time trying to like build up the suspense.
They don't.
Like,
I think they even say like they don't want. I think they even mention during their dinner or their lunch, like, hey, I don't want to just have small talk. I think they're like, let's just get to it. Maybe not, but I thought at some point in the movie they did that. I thought it was the scene.
Yeah. Which also felt real. You know, like sometimes like in a mob movie, it would be like there's some banter, like something like
yeah, definitely.
I don't know.
No, 100%. It was very just straight to the point. Anyway, they get out to the car, and as he's getting the money out, Bernie predictably goes to stab the driver, and he does stab him. But then the driver ends up stabbing Bernie, and I guess he had better aim because he killed Bernie. And
listen, he must have had some combat training because look what he did to those other guys, right? And those were like thugs.
No, definitely. And he got Bernie. Bernie died, and Gosling, the driver, got in his car, and he drove away. And he looked like he might have died. I thought he was going to die. He kept going. He kept living. I don't know. He kept surviving.
I don't know. I don't know.
Connor, I cannot stress to you how much I don't like this ending. He gets in the car, drives off onto a road, bleeding out.
It's called Drive.
Not knowing where Irene is, not knowing if he's gonna live, not knowing where he's gonna go, not having any answers.
Dude, that's the point. Like, I think that.
Man.
No, because remember we see Irene at the end. She knocks on his apartment door and he doesn't answer.
That's so sad. I hate it.
Dude.
Oh god.
It's because okay, I think this movie is really about violence and peace, right? And like because think about how calm the driver is, how at peace he is for so much of the movie, right? Yeah. And then think about how violent he becomes and think about how you feel at those different times, right?
Yeah, sure.
And think about as soon as violence is let into their lives and like a part of it, like it just escalates to the point where both he and Bernie, like that's like the culmination where it's not something fantastic, right? It's not like glorified or anything. It's just they're both just dead. Or I don't know, the driver might not be dead, but it's like over, right? Like it's just
I mean,
Irene and Benicio are like the victims in this whole situation,
I
right?
know. I get the point of the movie.
Even after
I get
even
the
even after he
beauty of it.
smashed
It's called Drive. I get it. He ends the movie driving. No matter the intention of the movie, I like getting clarity of the sort. I don't like a sort of, purposely ambiguous and unclear ending. I was like, I wish.
So here's my question.
I wish we got clarification. And
is it just that it has to do with the ending? Is it that it has to do with the ending that it bothers you, or
there's two different things about it?
Because because the driver is a very complex character, I think, right?
He's pretty complex.
And there's a ton that could have happened in his past that developed him and shaped him and made him what he is then, right?
The average person isn't like that, yes.
But does that matter to you that you don't know what that is? As
no.
much as it matters to you that you don't know what comes after?
No, it doesn't matter to me as much because look. Like,
okay. No, good deal. You go ahead.
Look.
Yeah.
I can get behind not understanding his past because I don't think it's all that important to know what specifically molded him to become that person. Because I think I already had an issue with him turning that quickly to be that unhinged sort of violence. I already mentioned my issues with that, right? I already said I wasn't really the biggest fan of him switching to that unhinged style of violence.
Yeah.
So him having that kind of a past, I didn't think it was that big a deal because I just think that, like, even if they had explained that to us, like, for him to just go that hard on a guy, like, I don't know. It was just seemed a little, I don't know. I just didn't think it mattered. It was just, again, it was a very quick 90-degree turn. Like, it just caught me off guard. And I just wasn't a fan of it in general. So that to me didn't matter that much. And second, when I'm watching a movie, there are some exceptions, sure. But I typically would I just want to know what happens with the two of them as characters, or at least if he survives, or like at least like where he goes, or at least if Irene even like, I don't know. I just wish they had one more interaction. I just wish they had one more interaction. I just do. Like, I get the movie didn't want to do that, and they have their reasons probably. They want the sort of like, like the sort of like just picture perfect, like drive. He's driving.
Well, I don't know if it's like picture perfect.
It's not picture perfect, but you know what I mean. Like, it's like it's perfect match for the movie. Like, it's called Drive, and he ends the movie just on a drive. And he maybe ends his life on a drive. It all ends so.
Dude,
you know what I'm saying?
You're making it sound so artsy, dude.
That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to be artsy like that. They are.
I don't
definitely.
feel like they're trying to just be artsy for the sake of being artsy, though. I feel like it's like.
But they set it up to make it artsy.
They're just trying to start a conversation about violence, I think.
Oh, I don't. Really?
Like, obviously, like, it's more than that. But, like, how much does driving actually affect, like, is the movie actually about driving? Like, I don't think so, right? The movie is about this character who is struggling with, like,
Connor, what does this character love to do?
His violent nature.
That's the thing. Like, I had no idea that, like, he had this struggle with a violent nature until the end, when I didn't think he even seemed to struggle with his violent nature. It went from he had no violent nature at all, not even being involved in the robbery aspect, to being so uncontrollably violent.
Okay,
that he didn't even seem to care about it.
If I am living my life, right, I'm not gonna like show signs of like every single thing that's happened to me in my past, but there might be a moment where something that has happened in my past resurfaces, right? Like, I don't know, it just felt more real to me than like than if they had planted the seed like earlier, like, oh look, here's an example of him struggling, or like, because even though that's how most stories are laid out, that's not exactly how real life is, right? It's not like
Yes.
the next 6 months of my life is going to be like taking the shape of like a movie plot with action climax. You know what I mean?
Like, yeah,
I
but
don't
what
know.
I would have been okay with something like, and here we can get into what we have for our ratings and what we, our summarize what we think of the movie. But I just want to say, I think that a little thing like after Irene's husband comes back and he's all alone in his apartment and before they talk to him, like just little, I would like to see like a little bit, a few outbursts of emotion when he's alone to show that like, all
Dude,
right, the
he
outbursts are there.
he did.
The only time he had an outburst of emotion was right before they flipped the switch when when he explicitly said to the guy in the diner he didn't want to get involved in another robbery.
Okay, but that was like right after that scene you're talking about. That was right after the party scene. Like, when else is he supposed to give an outburst of emotion?
I suppose. I thought that because it came after, like he kept talking to Irene. I thought the outburst of emotion was about his care for Irene. Like, like I already told you that earlier. That's what I thought it was.
No, I
stemming
think
from.
it was too. I think that was one of the first real connections that this character has had in his life. That's how it felt to me, right?
Yeah, the problem I have is just like, again, like it's just so. You say he tries to control his anger and his violence.
Well, I'm not
like he's struggling with it.
I don't know that he's actively struggling with it, but I think that like it's like he obviously like we all struggle with that, right?
Sure, but I just didn't see like I didn't think that when there was opportunity for violence, I almost never saw him. I don't think I ever saw him shy away from going too excessive, right? When there was an opportunity to be excessive, he was, in my view.
Yeah, he was.
So I don't know. If he was struggling, and look, let me. I don't know if you want to say something else real quick before I go into you can
Well,
say
I don't know.
something else.
I don't know that it's like, oh, like I'm trying not to be violent, but I can't help it, and I am.
Yeah.
I think it's just more like, it's almost like he doesn't mind. Like you can see it, like he doesn't mind being violent, right? But he also seemed to be at peace earlier in the film when he wasn't violent. I don't know. That's how I felt.
That's what I'm saying. It's very two drastic ends of a sort of spectrum that I just didn't expect to hit both sides of in a single movie, especially in a movie that's an hour and 40 minutes.
Well, you keep saying like you didn't expect it, and did you not like it because you didn't expect it? Because I feel like we've watched movies where you don't expect things and you do like it.
Yes.
I think, right?
Yes, because the difference for me is typically when you don't expect something to happen in a movie or a TV show, you look back and go, that made sense. A lot of the time, especially when it's well done. I think. Right? Like, that's just kind of the way I think it is. Now, I can give other examples of times in movies and TV shows where they do something you don't expect, and you're like, huh? Because it just makes absolutely zero sense. It makes absolutely zero sense.
Game of Thrones season 9, dude.
Season 8, yeah, it makes absolutely no sense.
Oh wait, season 8 is it not season 9? What am I?
Season 8, but
okay.
Like when a dragon evades every single thing thrown at him, but then the next dragon gets hit by the first one thrown at him, makes no sense.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Like, wow, that's not supposed to happen, but it did. This, so to me, I didn't see. I just looking back, I'm like, man, like it's just like bang, like the violence is there. It's excessive.
To me, I felt like looking back, it does make sense because
it's fair.
Just his character, how quiet he was, how he never talked, how he conducted himself, made me feel like he was hiding something. Like this was always a part of him, and he had just shoved it away and hidden it because he had found this peaceful life, basically.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I think I think it's interesting because we both don't quite agree on that. And I think that, I can kind of give my rating for the movie because, look,
sure.
I think a lot of the movie was well done. I've said that. I think the first half, it was slow, but it was very real. The interactions were good. It was uncomfortable watching Gosling act the way he did. But I think that's interesting. It keeps you a little bit engaged, right? Like, okay, this is a very unique way to do, like, they just didn't talk. Neither did Irene. She didn't talk very much. So that was interesting. I liked it. I think that even when the robbery went wrong, I liked that. I think just at the end, I just think it was just a turn to violence that I couldn't really quite I wanted to see more internal struggle if it was going to go that direction, and I
You
feel like
wanted
I didn't
more.
see
You
it.
wanted more scenes of like slow scenes and talking scenes with Irene. That's what you wanted.
I did. I also just wanted a happily ever after ending, but we didn't get that. I also just wanted Claire.
Yeah.
I also just wanted one more scene with the two of them. I also just like I think the violence was cool. It was well done. It was realistic. A lot of the violence that took place, which was great. The violence
Yeah.
in and of itself was well done. It was very quick and realistic, and it wasn't over dramatic. I mean, it was over dramatic, but it was like in a real way.
Hmm.
But I just wanted to see when he was committing these acts of violence a little bit more internal conflict and struggle, and I feel like I didn't see that very much from him. So that's just kind of what I wished. So all in all, I'll give this movie like an 84. Look, I would have given it an A minus if the second half of the movie, if there weren't just some fundamental things that I thought they could have done better. The first half, I would have given an easy 90 plus. Second half, it was just a little tough for me, so I'm going to give it an 84.
All right. Dude, I agree with a lot of what your observations are, and I think I just feel differently about them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like I don't really feel like I needed to see the internal struggle because
Fair.
I felt like his character like was a character that didn't have that struggle, like that just could give into that violence and not be remorseful for it, about it, you know?
Yeah.
But he could also still be super caring at the same time. And I don't feel like those two are mutually exclusive. Like I feel like in the real world, like that's how it is, right? It's not like you're constantly struggling with like two emotions in your head like every time you make a decision, right? Lots of times you just act on that one emotion because you're in the moment and that's how you feel, right?
Maybe. Yeah, I
Um,
suppose.
but I also like understand that film and stories and TV shows and books and everything have conditioned us to enjoy stories in a certain way. And a lot of the times, like stories are more enjoyable when we can understand the character's headspace better. And I think that's what's kind of partially what's getting to you as well, as
Yeah.
like this story was just like told in an unconventional way, which I
Yes, it
think is
was.
sometimes a little bit more difficult to like get behind.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and for me, it worked, but obviously it might not work for everyone, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's not to say that I have like a higher taste in like entertainment.
No,
That
I
just
understand.
I just
It's just
enjoyed
not
the
for
way that they
everybody.
told.
Yeah.
I just enjoyed the way they told the story.
Yeah.
I do think there was like a couple like I think at the ending it was a little bit rushed, or I wish they maybe did have that scene that you said about like Irene and him talking maybe one last time. That would have been cool.
Sure.
Um, yeah, but I think like if they maybe just added a couple scenes and then maybe changed the pacing around, made some of them a little shorter, and then made room for a couple more scenes or something. I don't know, but it's not a big deal. I would give this film a 95%.
Wow. Connor, this is great. This is, I think, one of the biggest disparities we've had on this podcast. I think this is good. This is good. We have definitely have two different views, two different ratings on this movie. And yeah, I think that's really good. I think overall it was a good discussion though. I think we had we agreed on a lot of things and disagreed on a lot of things, and it was good.
Yes, we talked
But
about a lot of things that like involve other movies too, like
yes.
conceptually, which was
Yeah.
cool.
No, 100%. And I hope everyone enjoyed that. And I already know what movie I'm gonna do for next week because I think it's something that, like, I'm not even the biggest fan of it, but I think it did a better job of what, like, I was talking about in, like, I want to see hints of it earlier on.
Okay,
I think that this
so we
movie
can continue a conversation.
Yes,
in,
next podcast. Yes, 100%. I'll tell you what the movie is shortly, but I'm gonna end this podcast here. I hope everyone enjoyed. I hope everyone enjoyed the podcast, and we'll be back.
Yes,
back
thank
next
you.
week
It was a fun one.
Movie
Watch
of my
Drive so
choice.
you can understand what we're talking about, because it will make this conversation like
Yes.
a lot more interesting.
No, 100%. I hope people agree with me because it's just true.
Listen, but even if they do agree with you, I think you would agree that they should watch this movie just to see.
Yes,
like,
no, 100%.
what
No,
happens,
it's
right.
yeah, and it's not too long of a movie. It's not dragged out. It's well, a lot of it's well done. No, don't get me wrong. So definitely watch the movie. It's a good movie. And yeah, let us know what you think. But yeah, we'll be back next week with another movie of my choice. I hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll see you then.
All right.